The doorbell rang at exactly 8:17 on the morning of my 75th birthday. I wasn't expecting anyone. My family hadn't mentioned plans to visit, but hope flickered briefly as I smoothed my cardigan and made my way to the door. A teenage delivery boy stood on my porch, holding a small bouquet of roses that had clearly seen better days. Half the petals were already browning at the edges. "Delivery for Eleanor Jenkins," he muttered, thrusting the flowers toward me without making eye contact. "Thank you," I said, accepting the sad little arrangement. The boy was already halfway down my walkway, eager to escape the awkward duty of delivering what was obviously a last-minute, obligatory gift. Inside, I searched for a card, eventually finding a small envelope tucked among the wilting blooms. The handwriting was my daughter-in-law Patricia's, recognizable by its rigid, angular strokes. "Happy birthday, Mom. Love, Andrew, Patricia, and the kids." 5 words. No exclamation point. Not even a proper signature from my son. I placed the bouquet on my kitchen table, next to the small cake I'd bought myself yesterday. 75 years on this earth, 48 of them spent married to Richard, 9 as his widow. And this was what my birthday had become: wilted roses and silence in a house that once rang with laughter. My phone chimed with an incoming video call. Andrew's face appeared on the screen, his perfect white teeth gleaming in what I recognized as his client smile, professional, practiced, and utterly devoid of genuine warmth. "Happy birthday, Mom!" His voice was too loud, too jovial. Patricia leaned into the frame, her blonde highlights freshly done, designer sunglasses perched on her head. "Thank you, dear," I replied, studying their background. They appeared to be in a living room, but something seemed off. "How are things at home?" "Oh, busy as always. The kids are at school, and we're just—" A waiter in a crisp white shirt appeared behind them, speaking rapid French as he set down 2 espresso cups. "Voilà, monsieur, madame. 2 cafés." Andrew's face froze momentarily before he recovered. "Thanks. We ordered coffee delivery. New service in the neighborhood." He angled the phone away from the distinctly European cafe setting. "How convenient," I said, my voice steady despite the realization crashing through me. "And where exactly is this neighborhood service delivering to?" Patricia jumped in, her laugh brittle. "Oh, Andrew's working from home today. We're at the house." As if on cue, the Eiffel Tower appeared in the window behind them as someone moved a curtain. "I see," I said quietly. "And is the Eiffel Tower a new addition to your backyard? Or have you perhaps taken a trip you forgot to mention?" The call ended abruptly. Whether intentionally or due to connection issues, I couldn't be sure. But the truth was crystal clear. My family was in Paris on my birthday, lying to my face about it. With hands that refused to tremble despite the hurt blooming in my chest, I opened my laptop, the one Andrew insisted I was too technologically inept to use properly. In 3 clicks, I accessed my bank account online. The withdrawals jumped out immediately. $12,000 2 weeks ago, $5,000 last week, first-class tickets to Paris, luxury hotel reservations, restaurant charges at Michelin-starred establishments, all from my accounts. I scrolled further back. The pattern had been ongoing for months, large withdrawals disguised as investment transfers or property maintenance. My retirement funds steadily drained to finance my son's lifestyle while I carefully budgeted my daily expenses, believing my accounts were dwindling naturally. The truth crashed over me in sickening waves. Andrew, my only child, the boy I'd nursed through pneumonia, the teenager I'd supported through his father's strict discipline, the man whose law school education I'd helped finance after Richard died, had been systematically stealing from me. And not just money. He'd stolen my dignity, my security, my trust. My phone buzzed with a text from Andrew. "Sorry, Mom, bad connection. Call dropped. Have a great birthday. We'll celebrate when we're back from our business trip next week." Business trip. The lie continued. I set the phone down and walked to my husband's study, the one room I'd kept exactly as Richard left it, the imposing oak desk where he'd worked on cases, the wall of leather-bound law books, the portrait of the 2 of us on our 40th anniversary. "They think I'm a fool, Richard," I said to the empty room. "Our son thinks I'm a doddering old woman who won't notice being robbed blind." I ran my fingers along the spines of Richard's books, first editions of legal classics, some worth thousands. Books Andrew had dismissed as dusty old things when he'd suggested selling the house. Behind the complete set of Justice Holmes's opinions, I found what I was looking for: the small key Richard had given me before his death. "When you turn 75, Ellie," he'd said, his voice weak but his eyes still sharp. "Not a day before, promise me." I'd promised, not understanding then why the specific age mattered. Now, as the betrayal of my son burned cold in my chest, I finally knew it was time. The small wall safe behind Richard's portrait clicked open, revealing a sealed envelope with my name written in my husband's distinctive script, along with a flash drive and a business card for someone named Victor Harmon, federal prosecutor, retired. As I held the envelope, a notification chimed on my phone, a social media alert from Patricia's account. With trembling fingers, I opened it to find a photo of my family, Andrew, Patricia, my teenaged grandchildren, and even Patricia's mother, raising champagne glasses on a Seine River cruise. The caption read, "Finally taking that European vacation we've always dreamed of. Best trip ever. Family time." My 75th birthday lunch, a sandwich I'd made myself, sat forgotten on the kitchen counter as I broke the seal on my husband's letter. Whatever Richard had planned, whatever protection he'd put in place, the time had come. They thought they were dealing with a helpless old woman. They were about to discover how wrong they were. If you're already feeling outraged by this family's betrayal, hit that subscribe button right now. You won't want to miss what happens next in Eleanor's journey for justice. My hands trembled as I unfolded the pages of Richard's letter, his familiar handwriting bringing him back to me so vividly I could almost smell his sandalwood aftershave. "My dearest Eleanor, if you're reading this, you've reached your 75th birthday, and I've been gone for some time. I pray these years without me have been gentle to you. Knowing our son as I do, however, I fear they may not have been." I sank into Richard's leather chair, my heart pounding. Andrew has always been bright but weak, easily influenced by status and money. Patricia only accelerated these tendencies. I watched him changing during my final years, saw how he looked at our assets rather than at us, the way he calculated what we had instead of valuing who we were. I've made arrangements, Ellie, protections I couldn't tell you about while I lived because I needed Andrew to believe he had access to everything. The accounts he's been managing since my death contain only a fraction of our true estate. My breath caught. What was Richard saying? The collection of first editions in my study that Andrew always dismissed as worthless old books? They're insured for $4.3 million. The small property in the Berkshires that we purchased under my mother's maiden name? Worth another $2 million in today's market. The investment portfolio managed by Victor Harmon, whose card is enclosed, currently valued at approximately $8 million. None of this appears in the will Andrew believes is final. None of it is accessible through the accounts he's been managing for you. I pressed a hand to my mouth, shock coursing through me. Richard, my methodical, justice-driven husband, had created a shadow estate, one Andrew knew nothing about. I specified that Victor should reveal this to you only when you turned 75, an age I calculated would force Andrew to show his true character. If I've gauged our son correctly, by now he will have begun systematically draining what he believes is your entire net worth, confident you're too trusting or confused to notice. Tears spilled down my cheeks, not of sadness, but of vindication. Richard had seen it coming. He'd known our son better than I had allowed myself to. Contact Victor immediately. He has all the documentation necessary to revoke Andrew's access to your accounts and to initiate legal proceedings if necessary. The flash drive contains detailed records of every transaction from our accounts for the past 15 years, cataloged with my usual attention to detail. I'm sorry for this elaborate deception, my love. I hoped Andrew would prove me wrong. If he has been a devoted son, caring for you as we raised him to do, then perhaps you'll never need to read these words. But, if not, remember that steel in your spine that first drew me to you, Ellie. The quiet intelligence that so many mistook for passivity. Now is the time to show them who you've always been. Forever yours, Richard. I set the letter down, my mind racing. All these years I'd believed I was living on limited funds, carefully budgeting what remained of Richard's judicial pension and our modest savings. Meanwhile, Andrew had been siphoning from even that reduced amount, leaving me to deny myself small comforts while he and Patricia took luxury vacations with my money. And all along, a fortune had been waiting, protected by Richard's foresight. I picked up Victor Harmon's card, studying the embossed lettering. According to the date on Richard's letter, this man had been silently managing millions on my behalf for 9 years, waiting for this precise day. My phone buzzed again, another social media notification. This time, it was my grandson Jason posting a photo from the Louvre, posing mockingly next to a statue of an elderly woman. His caption, "Found Grandma's long-lost twin. Old lady vibes, European vacay." The casual cruelty struck deep. I taught Jason to read, had attended every baseball game even when Andrew and Patricia were too busy, had helped him with his college applications just last year. And this was how he saw me, as nothing more than an old woman to be mocked, whose resources were there for his taking. I reached for my phone and dialed the number on Victor's card. A deep, measured voice answered on the second ring. "Eleanor Jenkins, I presume. I've been expecting your call." "You have?" "For 9 years, Mrs. Jenkins. Your husband was very specific about the date." There was a pause. "I take it you've read Richard's letter?" "Yes," I said, my voice growing stronger. "And I need your help." "Of course. Richard prepared for this extensively. I suggest we meet as soon as possible. There are documents requiring your signature, accounts to be transferred solely to your control, and several matters requiring immediate attention. How soon can we meet?" "I can be at your home in an hour, if that suits you." An hour. After 9 years of being slowly robbed by my own child, things would begin changing within an hour. "There's something else," I said, making a swift decision. "I need a forensic accountant, someone who can trace exactly what's been taken and how it's been spent." "Already arranged," Victor replied, and I could hear the smile in his voice. Richard thought of everything. His instructions were most specific about what to have prepared for your 75th birthday. After hanging up, I returned to Richard's study and began examining the bookshelves with new eyes. First editions, many signed, collected over decades of careful acquisition. Books Andrew had repeatedly urged me to donate or sell at garage sale prices to declutter. My laptop pinged with an email notification. Andrew, sending a brief birthday message with a photo of the family at dinner in what appeared to be an elegant Parisian restaurant. My grandchildren wore new outfits I'd never seen. Patricia displayed a gleaming diamond bracelet, and Andrew sported an expensive watch that probably cost more than I allowed myself for 6 months of living expenses. "Wish you were here, Mom," the message concluded, the insincerity palpable even through the screen. I smiled thinly at the irony. They had no idea that I would be there, not physically, but through the financial reckoning that was about to rain down upon their stolen holiday. The doorbell rang precisely an hour after my call. Through the window, I saw a distinguished man in his 60s standing on my porch, silver-haired and carrying a leather briefcase that looked as expensive as it was worn. Victor Harmon had arrived, and with him, the first step toward justice. Before I continue, don't forget to enter our exclusive story group where you'll get access to bonus content without ads, delivered straight to your phone even without internet. Just check out the pinned comment below to join our community of listeners. As I opened the door to greet Victor, I felt Richard's presence beside me, urging me forward. The time for being the overlooked, underestimated elderly mother was over. Eleanor Jenkins, librarian, curator, judge's wife, and evidently millionaire, was about to show her family exactly who they had been stealing from. "Your husband was a remarkable man, Mrs. Jenkins." Victor Harmon spread documents across my dining room table with practiced precision. His legal mind was unparalleled, but it was his insight into human nature that truly set him apart. I studied the papers before me. Account statements, property deeds, investment portfolios, tangible proof of Richard's elaborate safeguards. "He anticipated everything," I murmured, tracing my finger over a trust document dated 2 weeks before Richard's death. "Even how Andrew would react once given access to what he thought was our entire estate." Victor nodded gravely. "Judge Jenkins contacted me 11 years ago with concerns about your son's financial behavior. He'd noticed small discrepancies, insignificant amounts being diverted from accounts Andrew had begun helping with. The betrayal had started even before Richard died. The knowledge settled like ice in my stomach. The judge was extremely methodical," Victor continued. "He began transferring assets to sheltered accounts, creating the trust under my management, and documenting every suspicious transaction." He tapped a folder. "The evidence is extensive and damning." My throat tightened. "My own son. I'm afraid the financial abuse of elderly parents is distressingly common, Mrs. Jenkins. Even in families one would never suspect. Victor's professional demeanor softened slightly. Richard wanted to protect you, but he also wanted to give Andrew a chance to prove him wrong. By waiting until I turned 75. Exactly. It gave Andrew time to either demonstrate his trustworthiness or, he trailed off diplomatically, or reveal himself as a thief, I finished bluntly. Victor nodded. The first step is securing your immediate financial independence. I've prepared the paperwork to revoke Andrew's power of attorney and transfer control of all accounts solely to you. As I signed document after document, a notification pinged on my phone, an automatic alert from my credit card. A $3,700 charge at a designer boutique in Paris. Patricia, no doubt, enjoying another shopping spree with my supposedly dwindling funds. They have no idea what's coming, do they? I asked, almost to myself. No, Victor confirmed. And there's one more thing Richard wanted you to know today. He pulled out a final document from his briefcase. It's about the library collection. I frowned. The first editions in Richard's study? Not just those, the entire Jenkins collection at the Savannah Rare Books repository. My confusion must have shown on my face. You didn't know, Victor realized. Richard established a specialized collection at the repository 15 years ago. Rare legal texts, first editions, historical documents. He's been quietly building it for years under a blind trust. It's now valued at over $10 million. The room seemed to tilt slightly. $10 million in books? Richard was a passionate collector with an expert's eye. He leveraged his judicial connections to acquire pieces most collectors never get access to. Victor smiled. And he named you as the sole trustee, with the official title of chief curator. Tears sprang to my eyes. Richard had created not just financial security for me, but a purpose, a role that honored my lifelong love of books and preservation. There's a board meeting next week, Victor added. They're eager to finally meet the mysterious Mrs. Jenkins, who will be taking over direction of the collection. I wiped my eyes, overwhelmed by Richard's foresight and love. Even from beyond the grave, he'd found a way to protect both my financial security and my sense of purpose. Now, Victor said, his tone becoming more businesslike, we need to discuss how you want to handle the situation with Andrew. We have several options. Tell me. We could initiate criminal charges for financial elder abuse and fraud. The evidence would likely result in significant jail time. He paused, gauging my reaction. Alternatively, we could pursue civil remedies, recovering the stolen funds without criminal penalties. Or, I prompted, or you could confront him privately first, with the evidence in hand, and decide your course of action based on his response. I considered the options carefully, thinking of the grandson who mockingly compared me to an ancient statue, the daughter-in-law who sent wilted flowers as an afterthought, and the son who had been systematically stealing from me for years. But I also thought of the little boy Andrew had once been, holding my hand as we walked through the park, looking up at me with Richard's eyes. I want to see his face, I decided, when he realizes what Richard knew, what I know. I want to see if there's anything left of the son we raised. Victor nodded. A confrontation, then. We should prepare carefully. As we strategized, another notification lit up my phone. Andrew posting a family photo from the Eiffel Tower with the caption, "Making memories that will last a lifetime. Family first." The irony would have been laughable if it weren't so painful. A knock at the door interrupted our planning. I opened it to find a petite woman with silver-streaked dark hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Mrs. Jenkins? I'm Diana Reeves, the forensic accountant Victor engaged." She hefted a laptop bag. "I understand we have some financial discrepancies to investigate." I welcomed her in, introducing her to Victor. Diana wasted no time, setting up her computer and connecting a small device to my laptop. "This will extract the banking records and transaction history," she explained. "Based on the preliminary data Victor shared, I've already identified several suspicious patterns." Her fingers flew over the keyboard. "Classic signs of systematic financial exploitation, regular withdrawals disguised as legitimate expenses, transfers to accounts you have no access to, credit card charges for items you'd never use." "Like designer boutiques in Paris?" I asked dryly. Diana nodded. "Exactly. And luxury watches, high-end restaurants, premium golf club memberships." She glanced up. "No offense, Mrs. Jenkins, but you don't strike me as an avid golfer with a taste for $500 lunches." "None taken," I assured her. As Diana worked, Victor received a call that took him to the corner of the room. When he returned, his expression was grim, yet satisfied. "That was my contact at your bank, Mrs. Jenkins. All accounts have been successfully frozen and Andrew's access has been revoked. Any pending transactions, including several large ones initiated in the past 24 hours, have been halted." I took a deep breath. "So they'll discover the accounts are frozen while they're still in Europe, most likely within hours when they attempt their next purchase." Victor's tone was professionally neutral, but I detected a hint of satisfaction. My phone began to ring almost immediately. Andrew's name flashed on the screen. "Right on cue," Diana murmured. I stared at the phone, suddenly unsure. This call would be the first salvo in a war I hadn't wanted, but could no longer avoid. Once I answered, there would be no going back to the comfortable fiction that my son cared for me as more than a financial resource. "You don't have to answer," Victor reminded me gently. The phone continued to ring, insistent and demanding, just like Andrew himself. I straightened my shoulders, feeling that steel in my spine Richard had mentioned. 75 years had taught me something about courage, about standing up for myself. It was time to put those lessons to use. "Oh, I'm going to answer," I said, reaching for the phone. "But not quite yet. Let's let him stew a little longer, shall we? After all," I added with a small, determined smile, "I'm just a confused old woman. I probably don't even hear the phone ringing." Victor and Diana exchanged approving glances as I let the call go to voicemail, watching calmly as 3 more calls from Andrew followed in rapid succession. The game had changed, and for the first time in years, I was the one making the rules. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Eleanor's situation. Have you or someone you know ever faced financial exploitation from family members? Share your experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video if you're enjoying Eleanor's journey to justice. After 6 missed calls, I decided it was time. I nodded to Victor, who positioned himself beside me, ready to document the conversation. Diana continued working, but glanced up, giving me an encouraging smile. I pressed the answer button and activated the speakerphone. "Hello?" I kept my voice deliberately faint, confused, exactly how Andrew expected his elderly mother to sound. "Mom! Finally!" Andrew's voice blasted through the speaker, tension vibrating in every syllable. "There's something wrong with the accounts. The cards are being declined, all of them." "Oh dear," I murmured. "That sounds serious." "It is serious," he was nearly shouting now. "We're in—" He caught himself. I'm trying to handle some important transactions, and nothing's going through. The bank says the accounts are frozen." "Frozen," I repeated, infusing my tone with helpless bewilderment. "Why would they be frozen?" "That's what I'm asking you." His control was slipping. "Did you go to the bank? Did you talk to anyone about our finances?" "Our finances." The possessive pronoun hung in the air, audacious in its presumption. "Well," I said slowly, "now that you mention it, I did speak with someone today. A very helpful gentleman about some paperwork that needed my signature." "What paperwork?" Andrew's voice sharpened with alarm. "Who was this person?" "He said his name was Victor. Victor Harmon." I glanced at Victor, who was recording the call, his expression impassive. He knew Richard. The silence that followed was so profound, I could hear street noises from Paris in the background. "Victor Harmon," Andrew finally repeated, his voice oddly flat. "Did he say what he wanted?" "Oh, something about a trust Richard set up, and accounts I didn't know about." I paused, deliberately. "And a collection of books worth millions. Isn't that remarkable, Andrew? Books that you've been telling me to get rid of for years." Another silence, longer this time. When Andrew spoke again, his tone had changed completely. Gentler, persuasive, the voice he used when trying to convince me to sign documents without reading them. "Mom, listen to me carefully. This man Harmon, he's not who he claims to be. Dad never mentioned him to me, which means he's likely a con artist targeting vulnerable seniors." Victor raised an eyebrow, but remained silent. "Is that so?" I kept my voice mild. "Absolutely. These scammers are sophisticated. They research families, learn personal details, then swoop in with elaborate stories to gain trust." Andrew was warming to his narrative now. "You need to call the bank immediately and restore my access. I'll fly home right away and sort this out." "Fly home?" I feigned confusion. "From where, dear? I thought you were at the house." The momentary hesitation told me he'd forgotten his own lie. "I had to make an emergency business trip. Look, that's not important right now. What matters is protecting you from this Harmon person. And the accounts? The ones that are frozen? Once my access is restored, I'll make sure everything is secure. His voice softened further, taking on the patronizing tone I'd grown to hate. You know you don't understand financial matters, Mom. That's why Dad put me in charge of everything. Did he? I let a hint of steel enter my voice. Is that what Richard did, Andrew? Put you in charge of me? Something in my tone must have alerted him. Mom, what's going on? Who's there with you? As it happens, Victor Harmon is still here, along with Diana Reeves, a forensic accountant who's been tracking every penny you've stolen from me over the past 9 years. The sharp intake of breath was audible even through the phone's speaker. Mom, you're confused. No, Andrew. For the first time in years, I'm seeing with perfect clarity. I straightened in my chair, abandoning the frail old lady act entirely. Did you enjoy the Louvre today? And Patricia's shopping spree at Chanel? The charges came through just before Victor froze the accounts. This is absurd. You're clearly being manipulated by these people. These people, as you call them, were appointed by your father. Richard saw what you were becoming. He anticipated every move you'd make. Andrew's voice turned cold. Whatever you think you know, I know exactly how much you've taken, I interrupted. $347,000 over the past 9 years, according to Diana's preliminary analysis. Money transferred from accounts you had fiduciary responsibility for. That's not just immoral, Andrew. It's criminal. You can't prove anything. Diana looked up from her computer and nodded firmly. Oh yes, we could. Every transaction is documented, I informed him. Every penny traced. Richard was methodical that way, a trait you clearly failed to inherit. Patricia's mother needs medical treatments, he said suddenly, shifting tactics. The kids' college funds, business setbacks. You have no idea what pressures we're under. Pressures that justify luxury vacations, designer shopping sprees, lies about where you are on my birthday. My voice hardened. Where is my granddaughter right now, Andrew? Is Emily with you in Paris? The guilty silence confirmed what I'd suspected. Emily, my quietest grandchild, the bookish one who still visited me regularly, wasn't in the social media photos. They'd left her behind while stealing my money to fund their European adventure. Emily had summer courses, he finally muttered. She couldn't get away. Or perhaps she'd refused to participate in the charade. Here's what happens now, I said, my voice steady with newfound authority. You will no longer have access to any of my accounts. The power of attorney you've abused has been revoked. When you return from the vacation my retirement paid for, we will meet with Victor and Diana to discuss restitution options. Restitution? He sounded genuinely shocked. You can't be serious. We're family. Yes, we are, which makes your betrayal all the more reprehensible. I paused, allowing the weight of the moment to settle. Enjoy the remainder of your trip, Andrew. I suggest you book a cheaper hotel. Your credit limit has been significantly reduced. Mom, wait. I ended the call, my hand trembling slightly despite my resolute tone. 9 years of manipulation, of careful conditioning, to make me doubt myself, to make me feel dependent, all unraveling in a single conversation. Well done, Mrs. Jenkins, Victor said quietly. Diana nodded in agreement. That was impressive. Most victims of financial exploitation struggle to confront their abusers so directly. I'm not most victims, I replied, surprising myself with the conviction in my voice. And I'm no longer a victim at all. My phone immediately began ringing again. Andrew, then Patricia, then Andrew once more. I silenced it and turned to my new allies. What happens next? Victor consulted his notes. The accounts are secured. I've engaged a security service to monitor your home while Andrew is away. Tomorrow, we meet with the directors of the Jenkins collection to formalize your role. As for legal proceedings against your son, that decision can wait, I said firmly. First, I want to see my granddaughter Emily. Diana looked up from her computer. According to these records, she's attending summer literature courses at Savannah College. Campus is just 20 minutes from here. I nodded, a plan forming. Perfect. I think it's time Emily learned about her literary inheritance, don't you? The Jenkins collection will need a successor curator eventually. As Victor made arrangements for tomorrow's meetings, I found myself drawn back to Richard's study, to the books Andrew had dismissed as worthless. I ran my fingers along their spines, feeling their significance anew. not just as valuable objects, but as symbols of Richard's foresight and love. My phone pinged with a text from an unknown number. "Grandma, it's Emily. Dad's calling everyone frantically. Are you okay? Can I see you?" The first genuine concern anyone in my family had shown on my birthday. Perhaps not everything was lost after all. "Yes, dear," I replied. "I'm more than okay, and we have so much to talk about." The knock on my door came at precisely 7 that evening, 3 gentle raps that I recognized immediately as Emily's. Unlike her brother's impatient pounding or her parents' authoritative knocking, Emily's touch had always been tentative, considerate. I opened the door to find my granddaughter standing on the porch, her dark hair swept into a messy bun, glasses slightly askew, and an oversized canvas bag slung over her shoulder, likely filled with books, as always. "Grandma!" she breathed, relief washing over her face. "You're really okay." "Of course I am," I assured her, opening my arms. She stepped into my embrace, holding me tightly. "Happy birthday," she whispered. "I'm so sorry I didn't come earlier. I was in the library all day and didn't see Dad's texts until an hour ago." I ushered her inside, noting the shadows under her eyes and the tension in her shoulders. "You've been caught in the middle of something, haven't you?" Emily sighed, placing her bag on the floor with the care of someone who treasures its contents. "Dad called me 6 times. He sounds frantic. Something about accounts being frozen and you being taken advantage of." She looked at me directly. "But that's not what's happening, is it?" "No," I confirmed, guiding her to the living room where tea awaited. Quite the opposite, in fact. As we settled on the sofa, I studied my granddaughter's face, so like Richard's, with the same thoughtful eyes and determined chin. Of all my grandchildren, Emily had inherited not just his features, but his character, his integrity, his love of books, his quiet passion for justice. "They're in Paris," she said suddenly. "All of them. Dad, Mom, Jason, Michael, even Grandma Patricia." "I know. They told me it was a last-minute business trip, that you knew about it." She twisted her hands in her lap. "But they invited me weeks ago. I said no because I knew it was your birthday, and I couldn't understand why they'd plan a trip now." I felt a rush of warmth toward this thoughtful young woman. "You didn't want to miss my birthday." "Of course not." Emily looked puzzled that it would even be a question. "But then Jason posted those photos from the Louvre, and I realized they'd been planning this for months. They lied to me, and they abandoned you on your birthday." Her voice cracked slightly. "Using your money, apparently, from what Dad was saying." I poured the tea, giving myself a moment to decide how much to share. Emily was 21, an adult, but still caught between loyalty to her parents and her own sense of right and wrong. "Your father has been managing my finances since Grandpa died," I began carefully. "Today, I discovered he's been systematically diverting funds for his own use for years. The European vacation is just the latest example." Emily's face fell. "I was afraid it was something like that. Dad's been different lately, more secretive. Mom keeps buying expensive things, then acting weird when I ask about them." She set down her teacup. "Last month, I overheard them arguing about maintaining appearances and keeping up with expectations, even if they had to borrow from Mom's accounts temporarily." "Temporarily," I repeated dryly. 9 years is quite a lengthy temporary arrangement." 9 years? Emily looked stricken. "Since Grandpa died? They've been stealing from you all this time?" I nodded, then decided Emily deserved the full truth. "What your father doesn't know, what he discovered today when the accounts were frozen, is that your grandfather anticipated this. He created a separate estate, much larger than what Andrew thought existed, and arranged for it to be revealed to me on my 75th birthday." Emily's eyes widened. "Grandpa set a trap. A test, perhaps," I corrected gently. "One your father failed spectacularly. And now I've revoked his access to my accounts. The gentleman your grandfather appointed to manage the trust is helping me secure everything and explore legal options." I hesitated, then added, "Your father may face serious consequences, Emily. I wanted you to hear it from me first." She absorbed this in silence, her expression thoughtful rather than shocked. Finally, she asked, "What do you need from me, Grandma?" The question touched me deeply. Not, "How could you do this to my father?" or "Surely there's been a misunderstanding," but a simple offer of support. Richard would have been so proud of her. "Actually," I said, "there's something I'd like to show you." I rose and gestured for her to follow me to Richard's study. Emily had always loved this room, often curling up in the corner armchair with one of her grandfather's books during family visits. Now, she looked around with fresh appreciation as I explained about the first editions, the valuation, and the larger collection at the Savannah Rare Books repository. $10 million in rare books? She whispered, running her fingers reverently along a shelf. And Dad wanted you to sell these at a garage sale? Your father never understood the value of things that weren't immediately convertible to cash, I said. Richard knew that. It's why he established the collection in a trust, with me as curator. Emily turned to me, her eyes bright with sudden understanding. And you want me to help with the collection? Eventually, perhaps, if you're interested. You're studying literature and library science after all. I smiled at her surprised expression. Yes, I know about your double major, even though your father dismisses it as impractical. Dad says I should switch to business or pre-law, she admitted. Something with actual career prospects. Richard and I always believed in following one's passion, I told her. The Jenkins collection will need dedicated custodians for generations to come. Someone who understands both the financial and the cultural value of what we've preserved. Emily looked around the study with new eyes, seeing not just beloved books, but a legacy, a purpose. I'd be honored to learn, she said softly. But what about Dad? What happens when they come home from Europe? I sighed, the weight of that inevitable confrontation settling on my shoulders. That remains to be seen. Much depends on how your father responds when he returns, whether he shows any genuine remorse, any understanding of the damage he's done. He'll be angry, Emily warned. And Mom will be worse. I'm prepared for that. I straightened, feeling that core of strength Richard had always seen in me. I'm done being the convenient ATM, the silent grandmother who doesn't question when her retirement funds vanish while her family vacations without her. Emily impulsively hugged me. I'm so sorry they did this to you, Grandma. I should have realized something was wrong. You're the only one who remembered my birthday without prompting, I reminded her, returning the embrace. And you chose to stay behind rather than participate in their deception. That matters, Emily. We spent the next hour discussing the rare books collection and the upcoming meeting with the repository board. Emily's knowledge impressed me. She'd clearly been studying preservation and cataloging techniques that would be valuable for the collection's future. As she prepared to leave, her phone buzzed repeatedly. Andrew again, no doubt growing more desperate with each hour the accounts remained frozen. I don't know what to say to him, she admitted, staring at the screen. You don't have to say anything right now, I assured her. This situation is between your father and me. You're not responsible for his actions or for fixing the consequences. Emily nodded gratefully, then reached into her canvas bag. I almost forgot. I brought you something. She handed me a carefully wrapped package. Happy birthday, Grandma. Inside was a beautifully bound edition of Jane Austen's collected works. Not a rare first edition, but a thoughtfully chosen gift from a granddaughter who knew her grandmother's tastes. It's perfect, I said, genuinely touched. Thank you, Emily. After she left, I returned to Richard's study, placing Emily's gift on his desk. You were right about her, Richard, I said to the empty room. She has your integrity, your love of learning. Andrew may have disappointed us, but Emily gives me hope. My phone chimed with another text from Andrew, his 10th since our confrontation call. This is a terrible misunderstanding. Patricia and I are cutting the trip short. We'll be home in 2 days to sort everything out. Please don't do anything rash before we talk. I smiled at his choice of words. Rash would be describing my actions after a lifetime of careful deliberation. Rash would be allowing this exploitation to continue one day longer. No, what I was doing wasn't rash at all. It was long overdue. I texted Emily to confirm our meeting at the repository tomorrow, then prepared for bed, setting out clothes for my first day as official curator of the Jenkins collection. After decades of putting everyone else's needs before my own, it was time to step into the role Richard had crafted so carefully for me, not just as guardian of his financial legacy, but as steward of something far more valuable: knowledge, history, culture. Andrew and Patricia would return in 2 days, expecting to find a confused old woman easily manipulated back into compliance. Instead, they would meet Eleanor Jenkins, curator and trustee, a woman reclaiming her power after years of calculated diminishment. Let them come. I was finally ready. The Savannah Rare Books Repository was housed in a stately Georgian building downtown, its red brick exterior giving little indication of the treasures within. As Victor escorted Emily and me through the imposing oak doors, I felt a strange mixture of anticipation and trepidation. This collection, worth millions, curated secretly by Richard for years, had been waiting for me all this time. Mrs. Jenkins, what an honor to finally meet you. The repository's director, Dr. Harriet Simmons, greeted us warmly. Judge Jenkins spoke of you often during our acquisitions meetings. Acquisitions meetings? I repeated, surprised. Richard came here regularly? At least monthly for 15 years, Dr. Simmons confirmed. He had an exceptional eye for rare legal texts and first editions. The Jenkins collection is one of our crown jewels. She led us through security doors into a climate-controlled room where display cases held illuminated manuscripts and leather-bound volumes. At the entrance, a discreet brass plaque read, "The Richard and Eleanor Jenkins Collection of Rare Legal and Literary Works." My name. He'd included my name all along. "This way, please, Dr." Simmons guided us to a mahogany door marked Private Collection. "The board is waiting to meet you." Inside, 8 people rose as we entered. Distinguished academics and collectors who had apparently been working with Richard for years on a collection I'd known nothing about. They greeted me with respect, bordering on reverence, shaking my hand and expressing condolences for Richard's passing, as if it had happened recently, not 9 years ago. "We've maintained everything according to the judge's specifications," explained an elderly gentleman who introduced himself as the board treasurer. "Waiting for the day you would assume your role as chief curator." "My 75th birthday," I murmured, the significance of the date finally clear. Richard hadn't just been protecting our assets from Andrew. He'd been preparing a purpose for me, a reason to stay engaged with the world after he was gone. "Exactly," Dr. Simmons confirmed. The judge was quite specific. The collection would remain under interim management until you turned 75, at which point full curatorial control would transfer to you. "But I'm not a rare books expert," I protested. Dr. Simmons smiled. "The judge said you'd say that. He also said you were being modest. You have a master's degree in library science, Mrs. Jenkins. You managed the university's special collections department for 15 years before retiring." "That was decades ago," I said, though I felt a flush of pleasure that Richard had remembered my early career with such pride. After our children were born, I'd stepped back to part-time cataloging work, eventually leaving the field entirely to support Richard's judicial career. "Knowledge like yours doesn't disappear," Dr. Simmons assured me, and the judge established a substantial operational fund to provide whatever expert assistance you might need. As the meeting progressed, I learned the full scope of what Richard had created, not just a valuable collection, but an educational foundation that sponsored research fellowships, preservation initiatives, and public programming around rare books and legal history. Emily sat beside me, absorbing everything with shining eyes. When Dr. Simmons mentioned the collection's need for a long-term succession plan, she glanced meaningfully at my granddaughter. "The judge mentioned your granddaughter Emily might someday be interested in carrying on the family legacy," she noted. "We'd be delighted to establish an internship if that appeals to you, young lady." Emily's face lit up. "It would be an honor," she said, looking to me for approval. I nodded, my heart full. While Andrew had been systematically stealing my retirement funds, Richard had been building this, a meaningful legacy for both of us, and potentially for Emily as well. After the board meeting, Dr. Simmons gave us a private tour of the collection's highlights: rare first editions of legal precedents, signed copies of famous judicial opinions, literary works that had influenced legal thought throughout history. "And this," she said, stopping before a glass case in the center of the main room, "is the collection's centerpiece." Inside lay a small, leather-bound volume that looked unremarkable until I read the display card. First printing of Common Sense by Thomas Paine, 1776, inscribed by John Adams to Alexander Hamilton. "This is," I breathed, unable to find adequate words. "Worth approximately $2 million, Dr. Simmons confirmed. Judge Jenkins acquired it at auction 7 years ago, outbidding several major museums. After he died," I whispered, stunned by the revelation. Dr. Simmons nodded. "The judge established autonomous purchasing authority for the collection's trust with instructions that certain acquisitions should proceed even after his passing. He was building something meant to last generations, Mrs. Jenkins. Emily pressed closer to the glass, her expression reverent. Grandpa bought this knowing he'd never see it in the collection? The judge had remarkable foresight, Dr. Simmons said, and faith in those he left behind. She glanced at me with a knowing smile. He said his Eleanor would understand the value of patience, of planning for a future beyond one's own lifetime. As we completed the tour, Victor rejoined us, having spent the morning with the repository's legal team, finalizing the transfer of curatorial authority. "Everything is in order, Mrs. Jenkins," he reported. "The board has formally acknowledged you as chief curator, with full discretionary control over acquisitions, programming, and staffing." "Including internships?" I asked, glancing at Emily. "Absolutely. The operational endowment includes funds specifically designated for educational initiatives and succession planning." He handed me a folder. "These documents outline your authorities and responsibilities. The annual budget is quite generous." I opened the folder to find a figure that made me blink in surprise. "This is the annual budget? Just for operations?" "The judge believed cultural preservation deserved proper funding," Victor said with a small smile. "The acquisition budget is separate and substantially larger." As we prepared to leave, Dr. Simmons handed me a small box. "The judge left this for you, to be delivered when you assumed your role as curator." Inside was a key, antique brass, clearly symbolic rather than functional. Attached was a note in Richard's handwriting, "For Eleanor, who always held the key to everything that mattered. The collection is yours now, as it always has been in spirit. Use it wisely, my love." Tears pricked my eyes as I clutched this final gift from my husband. All these years, while I'd thought I was merely surviving his absence, Richard had been quietly ensuring I would eventually thrive. Outside the repository, Emily hugged me impulsively. "Grandma, this is incredible! The collection, the internship opportunity. It's like Grandpa planned the perfect future for both of us." "He always did think ahead," I said, smiling through my tears. My phone buzzed with yet another text from Andrew. "More urgent now, more demanding. Our return flight lands tomorrow at 2 p.m. We need to meet immediately to fix this disaster. I've spoken with our family attorney, their family attorney, not mine, never mine." "Dad again?" Emily asked, noticing my expression. "Yes, they're coming home tomorrow." I straightened my shoulders, feeling newly fortified by the morning's revelations. They expect to find me confused, apologetic, and ready to restore their access to my accounts. But instead, Emily said with a small, fierce smile so like Richard's, "They'll find the chief curator of the Jenkins collection." Exactly. I tucked the brass key into my purse, a tangible reminder of Richard's faith in me. "I think it's time we prepare for their return, don't you? Victor, could you arrange a meeting at my home tomorrow evening? With Diana present to discuss the financial documentation?" "Of course, Mrs. Jenkins." Victor made a note in his calendar. "Would you like me to have legal counsel present as well?" I considered this carefully. "Yes, but not confrontational counsel. Someone measured, reasonable. This is about establishing boundaries and consequences, not burning bridges entirely." Despite everything, Andrew was still my son. His children, especially Emily, were precious to me. If there was a path forward that didn't involve criminal charges, I wanted to find it. Richard, I thought, would have wanted that too. Justice tempered with mercy when possible. "Emily, will you join us tomorrow?" I asked my granddaughter. She hesitated. "You mean, be there when Dad and Mom return? When they find out about everything?" "Only if you're comfortable," I assured her. "This isn't your battle." Emily squared her shoulders in a gesture so reminiscent of Richard that it made my heart ache. "I'll be there, Grandma. You shouldn't face them alone." As we drove home, I reflected on the whirlwind changes of the past 24 hours. Yesterday morning, I'd been a supposedly helpless widow eating a solitary birthday lunch while my family vacationed with stolen funds. Now I was the chief curator of a multi-million-dollar collection, with financial independence restored and a clear purpose for my remaining years. All because Richard had seen what I couldn't, or wouldn't, see in our son, and had planned accordingly. All because he'd recognized strength in me that I'd forgotten I possessed. Tomorrow would bring confrontation, difficult truths, and painful reckonings. Andrew and Patricia would not surrender their sense of entitlement easily. But for the first time in years, I felt fully prepared to stand my ground, to claim my rightful place not as a convenient source of funds, but as a woman of substance, purpose, and determination. Let them come home to find their accounts empty and their assumptions shattered. I was finally ready. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell to make sure you don't miss the next chapter of Eleanor's journey. Will her son face justice for his actions? How will the family respond when they discover the truth? Leave your predictions in the comments below. I arranged the living room carefully for maximum impact. Richard's leather chair for me, positioned with quiet authority at the head of the room. The antique coffee table held neat stacks of financial documents Diana had prepared, color-coded and flagged for easy reference. On the side table, the brass key from the repository, my curator's credentials, and the folder outlining the Jenkins collection's true value. Victor arrived first, accompanied by Catherine Ellington, a poised attorney specializing in elder law. Diana came next, carrying additional financial records and a laptop for presentation. Emily slipped in shortly after, her face pale but determined as she took the seat beside me. "Are you sure about this?" she whispered. "You don't have to confront them so directly. The lawyers could handle everything." I patted her hand. "Some things need to be said face to face, dear. Some truths need to be witnessed." The doorbell rang at precisely 6:30 p.m. Through the window, I could see Andrew pacing on the porch, Patricia standing rigidly beside him. Neither looked happy. "Showtime," Diana murmured as Victor moved to answer the door. Andrew burst in before Victor could properly usher them inside. "Mother, what the hell is going on? Do you have any idea what you've—" He stopped abruptly, taking in the assembled group. "Who are all these people? Emily? What are you doing here? Hello, Andrew. Patricia." I kept my voice calm, controlled. "Please have a seat. We have much to discuss." Patricia remained standing, her designer outfit crumpled from travel, her expression thunderous. "We don't need a committee meeting. We need you to fix whatever you've done to our accounts." "Your accounts?" Diana raised an eyebrow, opening her laptop. "Perhaps we should clarify ownership before proceeding." "Who is this?" Andrew demanded, gesturing dismissively at Diana. "Diana Reeves, forensic accountant," she replied coolly. "I've been analyzing the systematic financial exploitation of your mother over the past 9 years. Please sit. My presentation includes visual aids you might find illuminating." The color drained from Andrew's face. "Mother, this is ridiculous. Whatever these people have told you." "These people," I interrupted firmly, "have told me nothing I didn't verify myself. The documentation speaks for itself. 9 years of unauthorized transfers, misappropriated funds, fraudulent representation. Fraud is a serious accusation," Patricia snapped, finally sinking onto the sofa. "We've been managing your finances for your own protection. Is that what you call it?" I nodded to Diana, who turned her laptop to display a chart tracking withdrawals against luxury purchases. "Managing my finances by spending $43,000 on jewelry last year? Or $27,000 on golf club memberships? Or perhaps the $93,000 European vacation was a necessary expense for my protection?" Andrew's face flushed. "We've been under financial pressure, business setbacks, the kids' education." "The children's education funds were fully funded years ago," Victor interjected. "Judge Jenkins established those trusts separately, as you well know." "Who exactly are you?" Patricia demanded. "Victor Harmon. I've managed the Jenkins Trust for the past 15 years at Judge Jenkins' request." Andrew's expression shifted from defiance to confusion. "What Jenkins Trust? Dad's estate was settled years ago." "The visible portion? Yes." I leaned forward. "Your father anticipated this situation, Andrew. He saw what you were becoming, what you'd already begun to do even while he was alive. That's absurd." But uncertainty crept into his voice. Catherine Ellington spoke for the first time, her tone professionally detached. "Judge Jenkins established a separate trust containing the bulk of his assets, designated to remain under Mr. Harmon's management until Mrs. Jenkins's 75th birthday." She slid documents across the table. "These records confirm the judge's concerns about potential financial exploitation were well-founded." Andrew stared at the papers without touching them. "This can't be legal." "It's entirely legal," Catherine assured him, "as is the evidence Ms. Reeves has compiled regarding your misappropriation of funds from the accounts you did control. That evidence could support criminal charges for financial elder abuse, fraud, and theft." Patricia gasped. "Criminal charges? Over family finances? Eleanor, you can't be serious." "I've never been more serious," I replied, meeting her gaze steadily. You've stolen over $340,000 from me, used my retirement to fund your luxuries, and left me to eat a sandwich alone on my birthday while you toured Paris with my money. Emily shifted beside me, her voice quiet but firm. I saw the social media posts, Dad. You were all there. You, Mom, Jason, Michael, even Grandma Patricia. Everyone except me, because I refused to lie about where you were going. Andrew turned to his daughter, desperation creeping into his expression. Emily, you don't understand. This is a family matter that's being blown completely out of proportion. I understand perfectly, Emily replied. I understand that you've been stealing from Grandma for years, that you left her alone on her birthday, that you lied to everyone, including me. Patricia's careful composure cracked slightly. We didn't steal anything. We were managing Eleanor's money for her own good. She has no idea about finances. Richard always handled everything. Did he? I removed Richard's letter from the folder and read aloud. Remember that steel in your spine that first drew me to you, Ellie. The quiet intelligence that so many mistook for passivity. I looked up. Your father never saw me as helpless, Andrew. That was a fiction you created to justify your actions. Andrew ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration I remembered from his childhood. This is insane. Dad would never have gone behind my back to set up some secret trust. And yet he did, Victor confirmed. The judge was extremely thorough in his preparations. He documented his concerns, established the trust with ironclad legal protections, and arranged for everything to be revealed to Mrs. Jenkins at precisely the right moment. The moment when you showed your true character, I added quietly. Andrew stared at me, naked calculation replacing his initial shock. So there's more money. Fine. That's actually good news for all of us, isn't it? We can sort out this misunderstanding and move forward as a family. His assumption, that after everything, he would still have access to these newly revealed assets, left me momentarily speechless. Diana cleared her throat. Perhaps this would be a good time to discuss the restitution plan. Restitution? Patricia echoed incredulously. For the misappropriated funds, Diana clarified. We've prepared several options, ranging from structured repayment to liquidation of assets. Of course, these civil remedies would be in lieu of criminal charges, should Mrs. Jenkins choose that route. The reality of their situation finally seemed to dawn on Andrew and Patricia. This wasn't a misunderstanding to be smoothed over. This was accountability with real consequences. You can't be serious, Andrew said, his voice hollow. We're your family. Yes, you are, which made your betrayal all the more painful. I straightened in Richard's chair, feeling his presence supporting me. Here's what happens now. You will sign the restitution agreement Catherine has prepared, committing to repay every dollar you've taken. You will relinquish any claim to managing my finances or accessing my accounts. And you will acknowledge, in writing, what you've done. Or what? Patricia challenged, though her voice lacked conviction. Or I'll file criminal charges, I said simply. The evidence is comprehensive and irrefutable. Financial elder abuse carries significant penalties in Georgia, including potential prison time. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom, Andrew finally said, a note of pleading entering his voice for the first time. We're still your family, despite everything. Surely there's a better way forward than legal agreements and threats. I agree, I said, surprising him. A better way would have been honesty, respect, and genuine care for my well-being. That option was always available to you, Andrew. For 9 years, you chose differently. Emily spoke up unexpectedly. Grandma has offered you a path that keeps you out of prison, Dad. That's more generous than most people would be in her position. Andrew turned to his daughter with a look of betrayal. You're taking her side? I'm taking the side of truth, Emily replied steadily. And basic human decency. Catherine slid the restitution agreement across the table. You have 24 hours to review and sign this document. After that, Mrs. Jenkins will pursue alternative remedies. Andrew stared at the document without touching it. And if we sign, what then? Then we attempt to rebuild some form of relationship if possible, I said, my voice softening slightly. With clear boundaries and expectations. I don't want to lose my family, Andrew. But I won't be exploited by them either. Patricia stood abruptly. This is extortion. We need to speak with our own attorneys before signing anything. By all means, Catherine said smoothly, though I should mention that my firm has already prepared a criminal complaint. ready to file if necessary. The 24-hour window is firm. As Andrew and Patricia moved toward the door, I called after them. One more thing. They paused, turning back reluctantly. I've been appointed chief curator of the Jenkins collection at the Savannah Rare Books Repository. The position comes with significant responsibilities that will keep me quite busy. Emily has accepted an internship there as well. The blank incomprehension on their faces would have been comical under different circumstances. The Jenkins collection, I repeated, worth approximately $10 million. Another part of your father's legacy you knew nothing about. Andrew's expression crumpled. 10 million in books, while we've been struggling with expenses? The irony isn't lost on me, I acknowledged, though your struggles seem to have accommodated first-class travel and five-star hotels quite comfortably. After they left, the room fell silent. Emily reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. You were amazing, Grandma. Victor nodded in agreement. Judge Jenkins would have been proud. You handled that with remarkable composure. I released a shaky breath, the adrenaline of confrontation finally ebbing. Do you think they'll sign? They'd be fools not to, Diana said pragmatically. The alternative is public humiliation and possible criminal conviction. Andrew has always been practical when his own interests are at stake, I said, remembering the calculating look that had replaced his initial shock. He'll sign. As our legal team packed up their materials, I found myself drawn once again to Richard's study. The room felt different now, not a shrine to the past, but a bridge to the future he had so carefully laid out for me. You saw it all coming, didn't you? I murmured to his portrait. The exploitation, the lies, even my eventual need for purpose beyond family obligations. Emily appeared in the doorway. Grandma? Are you okay? I smiled at my granddaughter, this unexpected ally who represented hope for the next generation. I'm better than okay, dear. For the first time in years, I feel fully alive. What happens tomorrow? After they sign? We begin again, I said simply, with truth as our foundation this time. It won't be easy, but nothing worthwhile ever is. Emily nodded thoughtfully. Grandpa used to say that, about things worth having being worth fighting for. He was right about so many things. I touched the brass key from the repository, this tangible symbol of Richard's faith in me. Now, shall we review those catalog records for your internship? The Jenkins collection won't curate itself, after all. 1 year later, I stood in the grand hall of the Savannah Rare Books Repository, surveying the elegant space transformed for tonight's gala. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over displays of literary treasures. White-gloved attendants offered champagne to distinguished guests, academics, collectors, and Savannah's cultural elite. At the center of it all, the newly expanded Jenkins collection, now including recent acquisitions I'd personally selected. Grandma, the mayor just arrived. Emily appeared at my elbow, resplendent in a midnight blue gown, her curator's badge gleaming. And Dr. Simmons wants to confirm you're ready for the dedication ceremony. Tell her I'll be right there. I smoothed my own gown, emerald silk that had cost more than I would have dreamed of spending a year ago, back when I was budgeting every penny while my son drained my accounts. So much had changed since my 75th birthday. Mrs. Jenkins, you've outdone yourself. Victor Harmon approached, looking distinguished in his tuxedo. The repository board is beyond pleased with the collection's expansion under your curatorship. Richard laid the groundwork, I said modestly. I'm merely building on his vision. You've done far more than that, Victor countered. The educational initiatives, the fellowship program, the digital preservation project, all your innovations. The judge would be immensely proud. My gaze drifted to the far corner of the room, where Andrew stood with Patricia, both looking uncomfortable in formal attire. They'd signed the restitution agreement exactly 1 year ago today, avoiding criminal charges, but committing to structured repayment of every dollar they'd taken. The past year hadn't been easy for them. Andrew's law practice had suffered when rumors of his financial misconduct circulated. Patricia had been forced to downsize her social commitments as their finances contracted. The European vacation had become a distant memory as they faced the reality of living within legitimate means. Are you ready to speak with them? Victor asked, following my gaze. As ready as I'll ever be, I replied. Our relationship had been cautiously rebuilding. Stilted family dinners, carefully neutral conversations, gradual steps toward something resembling respect, if not the easy trust we'd once shared. Andrew had met every restitution payment deadline, though I suspected Patricia resented each one bitterly. I made my way across the room, accepting congratulations from guests as I passed. When I reached Andrew and Patricia, I noticed the strain around their eyes, the forced quality of their smiles. "Mother," Andrew nodded stiffly. "Congratulations on the gala. It's quite impressive." "Thank you for coming," I said. "It means a great deal to have family here tonight." Patricia glanced around at the opulent surroundings, the wealthy patrons, the priceless books displayed in illuminated cases. "The collection seems to be thriving," she observed, a hint of bitterness seeping through her polite veneer. "It is," I confirmed. "The new acquisitions have attracted significant scholarly attention." Andrew shifted uncomfortably. "Emily seems to be taking to her role here." I followed his gaze to where my granddaughter was confidently explaining a rare manuscript to an enthralled group of donors. "She has a natural talent for it. The board has already discussed creating a permanent position for her after graduation. A more practical career path than I gave her credit for," Andrew admitted grudgingly. This small acknowledgement, that he had been wrong about Emily's literary interests, represented progress of a sort. A year ago, he would have dismissed the entire repository as a waste of valuable resources. "Mrs. Jenkins, we're ready for the dedication whenever you are, Dr. Rye." Simmons appeared at my side, rescuing me from the awkward conversation. "If you'll excuse me," I said to Andrew and Patricia, "duty calls." As I moved toward the podium, I spotted my other grandchildren in the crowd. Jason and Michael had come at Emily's insistence, looking bored but present, another small step toward family healing. Their social media accounts no longer featured mocking posts about their old lady grandmother. Whether from newfound respect or simple self-preservation, I couldn't be sure, but I chose to view it as progress. The crowd quieted as I took my place at the podium, the brass key from Richard's gift hanging from a chain around my neck, both accessory and symbol. "Distinguished guests, colleagues, friends," I began, my voice steady and clear. "1 year ago today, the Jenkins collection entered a new chapter when I assumed the role of chief curator. Tonight, we celebrate not just the expansion of our holdings, but the broader mission Judge Richard Jenkins envisioned when he established this collection 15 years ago. As I spoke about preservation, education, and cultural heritage, I saw genuine interest in the faces before me, respect for my knowledge and vision, not the patronizing tolerance Andrew had shown toward his confused mother for so many years. In honor of this anniversary, I am pleased to announce the establishment of the Jenkins Fellowship for Literary Preservation, I continued. This annual grant will support emerging scholars in rare book conservation and digital humanities, ensuring that literary treasures remain accessible for generations to come. Applause rippled through the room. From the corner of my eye, I saw Andrew's expression shift from detached politeness to genuine surprise. He hadn't expected this, hadn't anticipated that I would be creating new legacies rather than simply managing the old ones. "The fellowship's initial endowment comes from funds recovered over the past year," I added, meeting Andrew's gaze directly. "Transformed from personal loss into public benefit, from exploitation into education, from betrayal into legacy." A hush fell over the crowd, most unaware of the personal significance behind my words. But Andrew knew, Patricia knew, and from their expressions, they finally understood the magnitude of what they had nearly destroyed. Not just money, but meaning, purpose, impact. After the ceremony, as guests mingled and admired the collection, Emily joined me in a quiet corner. "That was perfect, Grandma," she said, squeezing my hand, "especially the part about transformation." "It felt right," I admitted, "to acknowledge where the fellowship funding came from, even if only our family understands the reference." "Dad looked like he'd been hit by a truck," Emily observed with a hint of satisfaction. "I think it finally sank in. What he took from you wasn't just money. It was dignity, purpose. And now both have been restored," I said softly, with interest. As the evening drew to a close, Andrew approached me alone, Patricia having retreated to speak with acquaintances across the room. "Mother, he hesitated, uncharacteristically uncertain. "The fellowship is an impressive initiative. Thank you." "Using the restitution money that way?" He struggled visibly with what he wanted to say. "It's not what I expected." "What did you expect, Andrew?" I asked, genuinely curious. He shrugged uncomfortably. "I don't know. That you'd spend it on yourself. travel, luxury items, the things we spent it on, I suppose. That was never who I was, I said gently, which is something you might have remembered had you seen me as a person rather than a resource. His face flushed with shame, a reaction I hadn't seen from him since childhood. I'm beginning to understand that. It wasn't an apology, not explicitly, but it was an acknowledgement, and perhaps that was enough for now. Your final restitution payment is due next month, I reminded him. After that, our financial entanglement will be concluded. And then, he asked, an edge of uncertainty in his voice. And then we continue rebuilding our relationship as mother and son, as family. I straightened my shoulders. With clear boundaries and mutual respect, if you're willing. He nodded slowly, a glimpse of the sun I remembered showing through the facade he'd maintained for so long. I'd like that. As guests departed, and the repository staff began the careful work of returning priceless volumes to their secure storage, I found myself alone in the main gallery. The space felt sacred somehow, not just because of the valuable books it contained, but because of what it represented. Richard's foresight, my renewal, Emily's future. I touched the brass key at my neck, thinking of all it had unlocked, not just the collection, but my own dormant strength, the quiet power Richard had always seen in me, even when I'd forgotten it was there. You were right, Richard, I whispered to the empty room. About everything. From being abandoned on my 75th birthday to presiding over a prestigious cultural institution 1 year later, the journey had been unexpected, painful, and ultimately transformative. They had traveled to Europe using my retirement money, leaving me to eat lunch alone on my birthday. But Richard had prepared for exactly this betrayal, setting in motion a sequence of revelations that would not only protect me financially, but provide purpose for my remaining years. As I gathered my things to leave, Emily appeared in the doorway. Ready, Grandma? The car's waiting. Yes, I smiled, taking one last look at the collection. My collection now, in every sense. I'm ready. Outside, the warm savannah night welcomed us, stars bright in the clear sky. As our car pulled away from the repository, I felt Richard's presence beside me, not as a ghost from the past, but as a partner in creating this unexpected future. They had underestimated me, dismissed me, exploited me, but in doing so, they had inadvertently set me free. At 76, I wasn't merely surviving my later years, I was defining them, on my own terms, with purpose, dignity, and the quiet strength that had been within me all along. Epilogue. 5 years have passed since that transformative 75th birthday. The Jenkins collection has grown into one of the most respected rare book repositories in the Southeast. Emily, now the associate curator, is being groomed to eventually take my place, though at 81, I show no signs of slowing down. Andrew and I have reached a fragile peace, built on his gradual acceptance of boundaries and my willingness to forgive without forgetting. Patricia remains coolly cordial, though I suspect she still resents the lifestyle adjustments forced by the restitution payments. My grandsons visit occasionally, with genuine interest replacing their former condescension. The Jenkins Fellowship has supported 12 promising scholars, their work expanding our understanding of literary preservation in the digital age. Each time I read their research updates, I think of Richard, how he would have delighted in this legacy that extends far beyond our family. Last month, I received an unexpected letter from the National Book Foundation, nominating me for a Lifetime Achievement Award in Preservation and Education. The ceremony will be held on my 82nd birthday, a fitting symmetry that brings my journey full circle. When I stand at that podium to accept the award, I will wear Richard's key around my neck and carry with me the wisdom of these extraordinary years. That age is not an ending, but a transformation. That betrayal, painful as it is, can sometimes be the doorway to unexpected purpose, and that it's never too late to reclaim your power, your dignity, and your right to define your own story. They left me alone on my 75th birthday, never imagining that their betrayal would unlock the most meaningful chapter of my life, a chapter entirely of my own writing. Before I go, I want to thank you for joining me on this journey. If you found inspiration in Eleanor's story of resilience and reinvention, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share with someone who might need to hear that it's never too late to reclaim your power. Let me know in the comments, what would you have done in Eleanor's situation?